Check it. It ought to break me, but it didn't get the best of me. The bars I spit is my audible diary. I once wrote my story in pencil, but I erased it with my shame. Now I grab the mic and point out, you're not the one to blame. TEDxRenfrewCollingwood, handing me scissors to help you cut free, but sharing my part cautionary tale full love story, where I realized the hero in the end was me. I'm Jodie. Today, I am breaking my silence. I'm going to take you on a trip, but we're only visiting because the past, it's not a good place to stay. Do me a favor, though. Let's ignore the humongous TEDx sign in the back. Don't think of this as a talk or a presentation. Think of this as a conversation between you and me, and hopefully a future conversation that you can have with somebody. If everyone could just close their eyes and think of 4 women and 6 men in your life. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men have been sexually abused before their 18th birthday. There's big pieces of her life she can't remember. Her mind shuts down as trying to protect her. It might be for the best to forget, but it always reappears every time she least expects. Late nights we lay awake, drowning in the lake that pours out of her face. Years later and she's still not safe. Memories leap out anytime, any place. The way he smelled and the way he smiled, the evil she even recognized as a child. Hand in her throat, sting of a fist. Instead of her first kiss, she got this. Shameful feeling, painful secret, lonely knowing that nobody would believe it. Every wound that escapes a time capsule hurts like the day it was born, and it was brand new. Sexual abuse can occur in any neighborhood. The abuser can be of any gender, age, race, or economic status. 95% of victims know their abuser. In fact, the younger the victim, the more likely the abuser is a family member. So, what does this mean? It means nobody is exempt. I represent the 1 in 4. I was forced to leave my body at 4 years old when I was sexually abused by my paternal grandfather, Adriano. The last time was when I was 14. My grandmother, Milagros, his accomplice. Now, I'm not alone. Only 6% of abusers work by themselves. Did you know that in Canada, a woman is raped every 17 minutes? So that's 1 more woman by the time I get off the stage. I represent that statistic. I did not consent. I did not consent. I did not consent for you to hold me down and rape me. Sloppy kisses while whispering in my ear, baby, don't you worry. 67% of women that were sexually abused as children, they find themselves in a domestically abusive relationship at least once in adulthood. Instead of treating me as his queen, I became his ragdoll, tossing me around the room, arms of God breaking every fall. Now, wounds have closed, bruises faded. I can finally have some peace at night. No more yelling, no more screaming, no more hands around my neck so tight. No more questioning your whereabouts and late night returns. I'm so thankful I'm done dealing with all those concerns. 'Cause for years I asked God, why the hell would he do that? Karma will make sure you never sign in the dotted line of a contract. Sins of the father won't be the sins of the son. I'm breaking my silence of how I survived you. Guess what? I've only just begun. Sexual abuse is a national public health issue and a worldwide epidemic that has increased, get this, 134% since 1980. 90% of people with addictions, 80% of prison inmates, 61% of girls with an eating disorder, and 49% of homeless women have been sexually abused as children. Now, let's bring it closer to home. A report was done in 2005 regarding prostitution in Vancouver. Out of the 100 people interviewed, 96% disclosed histories of childhood sexual abuse. 96. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. It adds insult to injury because your body was violated and now your mind won't allow you to forget or heal. This invisible epidemic can actually be decreased by 80%, and the victim is more likely to recover quicker when there is immediate help available when the abuse happens. Now, if it takes an average of 24 years for a victim to break their silence, and if sexual abuse is one of the forefathers to suicidal behavior, then does that mean these statistics are inaccurate? Are they underestimates? Because it's hard to identify a survivor who doesn't come forward. Makes sense, right? Ever since I've been breaking my silence, I have connected and shared my stories with a lot of male survivors. And there is something that I want to address on behalf of them since I'm standing on this infamous red carpet. The way society feeds us with messages of, "Are you crying? Boys don't cry. Hey, suck it up. Be a man." For a lot of male sexual abuse survivors, to admit to being sexually abused is to admit to being less of a man. Male sexual abuse survivors, they are less likely to break their silence than females. Male sexual abuse survivors are less likely to seek treatment. Why? Part of the reason is that male sexual abuse survivors are less likely to be taken seriously. That's not right. Remember my 80% of people with addiction statistic? Well, male sexual abuse survivors are more likely to turn to substance abuse as a method of coping. I was, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the cab on the way home, and the cab driver was Punjabi, and I was in the back seat, and I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to practice my TEDx talk. So, hey, I need all the time I can get, right? So I'm mumbling to myself in the back seat because I didn't want him to hear me. So I'm mumbling myself, 90%, 80%, 49%, 61%, and he kept looking back at me, because I probably sounded like Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. And so he turns and he asks, do you want me to just take you to the hospital? And I was like, what? Oh, no, I'm fine. So I told him that I was practicing for something. And he was like, oh, let me hear it. I'm like, okay. So I start from the very beginning, this exact talk, and I am laughing to myself because I'm like, this is the silliest shit that I have ever done. I'm mid-sentence. He pulls over, stops the car, and he starts crying. He immediately, in English and Punjabi, starts to tell me of the trauma he endured as a young boy back in India. Now, although I couldn't understand him when he would revert back to Punjabi, I understand pain. That is a universal language that male and female sexual abuse survivors speak. He went on to tell me that was the first time he had told somebody in 44 years. Now, that was the first time I ever hugged a cab driver, by the way. Now, why is it that he chose silence for 44 years? Why did I choose silence? Why is it, after all the information that I have just given you, that sexual abuse is one of those things that people don't like to talk about, yet it is one of the most prevalent crimes in the world? Why do people have such a hard time saying the words sexual abuse? It's the fastest way to clear a room, FYI, if you want to, ever do that. Any idea? Shame. Shame is a fear-based internal state being, accompanied by beliefs of being unworthy and basically unlovable. If there's one thing I know for sure about shame and sexual abuse, is that they are the best of friends, but nobody wants to talk about it. Shame is the breeding ground for apathy, blame, complacency, fear, judgment, self-harm. See, the more we don't talk about sexual abuse, the bigger the shame gets, and the more we are actually creating the right kind of environment for sexual abuse to continue and thrive. In South Africa, a child is raped every 3 minutes. How many children is that by the time I walk out of the stage? Sexual crimes against children will not stop unless we start speaking up, because our silence is the abuser's protection. Parents need to educate their children about sexual abuse before the wrong person does. A pedophile has an average of 263 victims in their lifetime. Why is that number so high? Well, one of the characteristics that makes up a pedophile is that they usually take on occupations where they can work in close proximity to children. My grandfather, he was an elementary school teacher. He was able to get to me successfully because he had had practice and he was skilled in manipulation. Don't tell anybody about this. Do you want to ruin your family? Do you want me to just go to your sister? Shame loves secrecy. I finally broke my silence to my parents. They took me to see a counselor who, after a couple of sessions, sits me down and says, "Now, let's talk about forgiveness." Hold up. So, I was the one that was paying a life sentence for a crime that I did not commit, yet I had to be the one to forgive? I was not ready to do that. There was a family meeting where my grandfather was confronted, and he showed no remorse. The only response as to why he molested me was, We were close. Not having him arrested and attending that wedding anniversary was just as painful as the abuse itself. It re-victimized me. They perpetuated the cycle. They were the ones that were abiding to his code of silence. They showed me that I was indeed unworthy and unlovable. Now, folks, victim blaming, this shit has got to stop. One of the reasons survivors do not come forward is because they fear they're going to be judged. Survivors, it is not your fault. It was never your fault. Shame just got transferred to you. You deserve more than surviving. You deserve to thrive. Never underestimate the power of open conversation. There is tremendous strength in exposing vulnerability. Shame cannot survive exposure to the truth. My fellow survivors and thrivers, in the wake of our monster's destruction, we rise victorious. Adriano, I am returning shame back to you, the rightful owner. The key to your code of silence has been broken. I was once your captive, imprisoned by your crime, but now I stand here having conquered you. Think of this conversation as my password. My password is breaking my silence. I want my story to unlock more stories to create a domino effect. I had thanked a male survivor for sharing his story of trauma with me. And he was like, dude, you're the first person I told. You gave me the green light. Now I can go tell others. She said if I was meant to die, he would have killed me. There must be a reason that I still breathe. I don't have the tools to rebuild me, but I still believe that one day I could feel free. And my body could be mine again. My eyes can learn how to shine again. My inner child won't have to hide, and then when I'm strong, love could be invited in. Sweet God, that's all I ask of thee. I'm willing to give what you demand of me. I'm learning to embrace the reality that life doesn't always turn out how it's planned to be. I didn't deserve what was handed to me. The only one that could grant happiness is me. What it takes for her to face the day, I can only hope to be half that brave. I wasn't there, baby girl, but I'm here. I don't know what to say, I just hear. There's one wish I can say in truth, I would shoulder that pain and take it off of you. Don't run, baby girl, don't run. You gotta face what you're fighting head on. Only one thing I can say in true, you gotta deal with the demons before they deal with you. I'm Jodie. I am worthy, I am lovable, and I have just broken my silence. Pass it on. Lights green. Thank you.